My job was in civilian personnel in headquarters on Philbin Street. And I interviewed people because it was the early days of the camp opening, and they needed lots of people. And so I would take all their vital statistics, etc. One thing I've always been shocked about, one of the questions was, were you legitimate or illegitimate? Can you imagine that? That was one of the questions I had to ask. But anyway, it was a very interesting job. I enjoyed it a lot. Being 19 years old, I was antsy and wanted to try different things. So I went next door to the military personnel, where we checked in all the incoming soldiers and officers. And my best friend, her desk was right in front of mine. I don't know how that happened, but it did. My best friend was Muriel Matthews, and when I moved to military personnel, I can't remember if she was already there or not, but anyway, her desk was in front of mine, and we enjoyed that job very much because we got to meet all the young men that were coming through to start their final training in the camp. These two young men had come in from Texas, and they were in San Francisco. They were both training officers with the infantry in some base in Texas, and they sent them to the Presidio, and they said, we're going to change you to the Transportation Corps, which nobody really had heard about it. So then they were there for a while, and then they sent them to Camp Enza. And Muriel and I were privileged to check them in. And as these two handsome young men came in, they stood out from the crowd. And so I said to Muriel, I said, I'll take that one. And she said, okay, I'll take this one. They were right together. So that was it. And I don't remember when we had our first date, but anyway, that stopped all the fun we were having at the enlisted men's club, where we would go to the dances. And at lunchtime, we would go to the PX and dance with the soldiers. They had a nice jukebox there, and so we had a good time. And we never did date the boys, but just trying to be cordial and friendly. My husband said, well, I'm a 90-day wonder, and now I'm a 90-day husband. Because we'd only known each other for 3 months. And that was it. My best friend, she took a little more time. She wasn't quite so flighty. And she joined the Waves and was sent to Washington, D.C., and Richard was sent to South Africa, which he really loved. He said the people there were wonderful. They treated him so nice. He said, I almost stayed. And then I thought, well, no, I got to go see Muriel. So he came back, and they were married. My husband's name, Fred Carneal Woodard. Everybody called him Woody. He stayed at Camp Anza for quite a while, because he taught a lot of the fellows to shoot, took them to the firing range. And it was, you know, they were draftees, most of them. And he said, I have one fellow that only has one eye. And here I'm teaching him at the firing range. That was one of his jobs. And he had various jobs. The camp had a most marvelous, marvelous marching band. When the fellows would come off the train, they would be marching, and my husband-to-be would be directing them. And that was pretty exciting. It would be wonderful to have recordings of that. They were wonderful musicians, and they marched in some big parade post-war in LA. They were chosen to do that. And my husband did various jobs there in the camp, and I can't remember how long he was there, but he was there quite a while, because we didn't leave until probably a couple of months after we were married, because we lived in Arlington for a while. He was able to live off the base. But I was telling Bobby that she asked me if I had any pictures, and I really don't, because they didn't really want us to take pictures, and they wanted us not to talk about what was going on. Zip your lip. That was the newspaper's name, was Zip. Well, anyway, after I left the military personnel, I went to the film library, and I had to do something different. And I would show training films to the fellows as they were preparing to leave, and a lot of things, I don't know if they ever used them before they went or not, but anyway, that's what we did. And at that time, Dizzy Arnaz was there, and he was in the reception center, where they also had the Italian prisoners, and the black people, I think they were in the reception center, because there was no, they couldn't be together. They had their own separate club and everything. It was quite different then than it is now. And one of the things that I really enjoyed when I first came to the camp, they didn't have any theaters, but the men were coming in on the train, and they had a big, sort of like a wagon, and they used it for an outdoor stage. And the one thing that impressed me so much was a singer came, and she sang and sang for the soldiers and took their requests, and she sang until she couldn't sing another note. And her voice just gave out. We saw Bob Hope in the Temporary Theater, and Lucille Ball, and at that time she and Dizzy were married, and that was kind of exciting. And
I'd like to bring you back a little bit to your marriage. You and your husband were married at a special place also. Where was that at, Louise?
Oh, we were married in the chapel there at Anza, and it's still there, and it was really quite a beautiful little chapel. I remember the chapel had an upper floor where they had the organ, and that was so nice. And we had a beautiful little wedding. But the girls in those days didn't wear the gowns. Unless you were a Catholic girl, then you wore a wedding gown. But no, we wore a suit and a little hat. You know, we were all decked out. And I know I went downtown before we were married to the millinery shop at in the Mission Inn. And the lady said, well, is this for something special? And I said, well, yes, kind of. It's kind of special. I'm getting married. So that was kind of fun for me. That was about the highlight of my attire, because the ladies all gathered around me and made all these pretty little veils, you know. So that was kind of nice. We moved to San Pedro, you know, because he did get moved down to the Embarkation Center in Wilmington. And my sister lived in San Pedro, so I moved in with her. And her husband was in Anzio, by the way. Anyway, he shipped out there, and he went on a not a transport ship, but a supply ship. It was one of Kaiser's ships that they build, you know. And so they were taking, I think, B-51s. They were small enough to put down in the hold. And they'd take the wings off and put the plane down. It was built for that.